Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Maria Madrid. Thank you for joining us for another Senior Answers podcast episode. Today, we will be covering legal guardianship. We have a wonderful guest. Her name is Sophia Alvarez. She's an attorney and the director at the Colorado Office of Public Legal Guardianship. Thank you so much for joining us. And I'll be asking you some questions so we could learn more about legal guardianship. Let's start with, what is legal guardianship?
Yes, thank you, Maria, for having me and allowing me to provide some information on legal guardianship. So, guardianship is a court process. Guardians are appointed and overseen by the court. Um, Ultimately, guardians are responsible for making legal decisions related to a person. So, as an example, that might be healthcare or placement decisions related to an individual. There are also guardianships that are available for minor children, but my focus is on adults. Guardianships are usually put in place for an adult that is incapacitated. Um, the court has to first determine that an individual is incapacitated before the court appoints a guardian. So, what is incapacitated? Incapacitated basically means that the individual is not able to make decisions about their own physical health, safety, or welfare. And there is a statute cited for Colorado Probate Code that's very lengthy, but that's in the slides. An incapacitated adult is an adult who is unable to effectively receive or evaluate information, or both, or make or communicate decisions to such an extent that the individual lacks the ability to satisfy their essential requirements for physical health, safety, or self care, even with appropriate and reasonably available technological assistance. The court, in determining whether an adult is incapacitated, will review various medical documentation. And if the court determines that the individual is incapacitated, the court will then appoint a guardian. During that process, the court is also determining if the nominated guardian is qualified to serve as guardian. So, guardians are then responsible for making the legal decisions on behalf of the incapacitated individual. At that point, once there's a guardian in place, the incapacitated individual is called a ward. For purposes of this podcast, we'll refer to individuals under a guardianship as wards.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. So, can you tell us, what are the responsibilities of a guardian?
Yes, so a guardianship is a very serious matter because it does take away individuals' rights to make certain decisions for themselves. So a guardian is considered a fiduciary. That's a person having a duty to act primarily for the benefit of another person. And so we have to take this responsibility very seriously in making decisions for for our ward. Excuse me. Um, as part of making decisions on behalf of your ward, a guardian should consider the wishes and desires of the ward when making those decisions on their behalf. And in general, guardians can make legal decisions about the physical health, safety, or self care. So, as some examples of those are, a guardian can make decisions about a ward's medical care, surgeries, medication, dental care, and also where the ward may live. So, following up on that a little more in detail, is a guardian has to determine and monitor a ward's residence to make sure that it's safe and meets their needs. Guardian consents and monitors medical treatment. We can also consent and monitor non medical treatment, such as education, vocational goals, counseling. A guardian also has to consent to release of confidential information. And sometimes a guardian will have to make end of life decisions on behalf of their ward. As a guardian, we really want to help the ward be as independent as possible. So one thing we consider is something called least restrictive manner or alternatives when it comes to placement or medical decisions. So as an example, someone may be incapacitated and need to be living in an assisted living facility rather than an institution or a really secure hospital because we want them to be as independent as possible with their livelihood on a day-to-day basis. Another responsibility of guardians is that we have to report to the court. So that's usually annually. And during um, that review to the court and that annual paperwork, we should also be looking at whether our ward has regained capacity and maybe they no longer need a guardianship, or maybe they could use a limited guardianship, which allows the ward to be able to take back some of those decision-making abilities. Now, a guardian can help do a lot of things, as you see, but there are also some decisions here in Colorado that a guardian cannot make without court intervention. And that would be if your ward needs a mental health institutionalization or substance abuse treatment that is involuntary. A guardian cannot just sign up their ward for either of those treatments or placements without court approval.
So can you tell us what is conservatorship and how is it different from legal guardianship? Sometimes people get those two confused.
Yes, definitely. So a conservatorship is also a court process, and a conservator is responsible for protecting the money and the property of the protected person or incapacitated person. So usually a conservatorship is appointed when the protected person has an estate or has assets that the conservator needs to keep safe. So an estate is defined as real and personal property, tangible and intangible, and includes anything that may be the subject of ownership. So it could be a house, it could be a vehicle, it could be stocks or bonds. But basically, when a conservator is appointed, they have the following responsibilities. They have to marshal and protect those assets, obtain appraisals of property, again, if it could be a house or a vehicle. They have to protect that property and assets from loss. So there are some guidance for conservators. If maybe there's some stocks or bonds that are in place, they have to make sure that they invest those wisely and protect them from loss as much as possible. Conservators can receive income for the estate and make appropriate disbursements. But they do have to obtain court approval before selling any assets. And conservators, just like guardians, they do have to do at least an annual reporting to the court on the status of the estate. Now, in Colorado, our law separates a guardianship and a conservatorship and their responsibilities and duties. They're both considered fiduciaries, as we talked about before. So both a guardian and a conservatorship or a conservator has a responsibility to protect and care for the assets and the person of the ward. Our office, we are guardians, so we protect the person. As I mentioned in the earlier slide, that's going to be the healthcare decisions, anything that affects the person and themselves. So medical decisions and places where they may live, things like that.
So can you tell us when is legal guardianship appropriate?
Yes, so generally speaking, for an adult, guardianship is appropriate when an individual has been determined to lack capacity to make the decisions. Again, talking about decisions that satisfy their essential requirements for physical health, safety, or self-care. Again, because we're taking away some major rights of people there needs to be some evidence that a person really lacks capacity. That whatever makes them lack capacity, that can also affect their ability to make those safe decisions. So I do want to take a step back. Just because someone lacks capacity doesn't mean that they lack the ability to make all decisions. So we have to walk that fine line and making sure that if we put a guardian in place, um, it's really necessary for the safety and well-being of the individual. There are also guardianships for a minor. Those are much more complicated, and our office doesn't handle guardianships for minors. But there are some resources that I think you'll make available to the listeners on your podcast if they need more information about that. Um, Basically, for minors, a guardianship is a legal relationship between the minor and typically a non-biological parent. So this may be appropriate if for some reason the parents are no longer able to make legal decisions for their child. And that could arise in many instances.
So, can you tell me how a guardianship is different from advance directives?
Yes, so advance directives are legal documents that are completed by an individual when they have capacity. Guardianships are appointed once an individual is deemed incapacitated, so they've lost that ability to make those decisions for themselves. Some examples of advance directives are living wills and durable powers of attorney, which can relate to both healthcare, medical decisions, and then finances. And a living will is a legal document that states what healthcare or medical decisions and care you want if you were to become incapacitated. So, for example, in your living will, you can give your wishes on whether your health fails to the point that you should be on a ventilator. Well, maybe you don't want to be on a ventilator. Maybe you want comfort care at some point. Another thing you can kind of direct in your living will is whether you want CPR or not. So, a living will, it basically guides someone into what your decisions are once you become incapacitated. You have to have capacity to make your living will. A durable power of attorney acts similarly in the sense that you have to have capacity when you create a durable power of attorney. And that is a legal document where you name a person to act on your behalf to make healthcare or financial decisions, if you become incapacitated. So this is something that you give, again, you may give your wishes and desires in that, but you're basically saying, this person, if I become incapacitated, can make healthcare decisions for me.
And just to clarify before we go on to our next question, so guardianship, we have to go through the court and someone needs to be incapacitated. Advanced directives, those are documents that we are able to complete when we have capacity and we want to say what's going to happen if we become incapacitated. So with that said, what are some best practices when we're talking about legal guardianship?
Yes. So there is a wonderful resource for guardians. It's called the National Guardianship Association. And they basically are about creating best standards and practices for guardians. And I believe we have some of them listed, what some of the best practices are. But for more information, I would definitely check out their website. They have much more than we can cover here in a podcast. But basically, a guardian will coordinate and monitor any sort of professional services that their ward may need. So that could be in-home services, it could be hiring a caretaker, it could be to communicating with Medicaid to get in-home services or anything like that, counseling. A guardian should also learn about their ward's wishes and desires and goals and create a guardianship plan. Our office does that with each client. We sit down with them and, to the best of their ability, if they're able to say, I want to get a job, or I need a dental appointment, whatever those are. It could be medically related, educationally related, vocational, or social. So those are things that a good guardian should be doing, is learning about your person. What do they want? What do they like? And then creating a plan with them to help them achieve those wants and desires and goals. Best practice is also a guardian will include the ward in decision making. So while the court gives you the ultimate authority in making those decisions on behalf of your ward, you should still include your ward, again, to the best of their ability to do that, in making those decisions. Oftentimes, what we do in our office is we ask our clients, what do you want in this situation? Here are some options. What do you think will work for you? Or what don't you like about this? And then we try and create the plan or create that decision based on what they've told us. We do not try to just go and make all the decisions and never include them. Something that is also a best practice, and you may have heard the term person-centered planning. A guardian, that kind of, as I just said, a guardian will assist the ward in making those plans for themselves. We want to have them included. We want them to be the main guide, like the captain of that ship, and we're kind of the second mate. I don't really know if that's the right term, but we help lift them up so that we are helping them achieve their goals and what they want. And then, as I talked earlier about the least restrictive options, again, when making decisions for the ward, we want to maximize the ward's independence. And so we want them to be as free as possible to act in accordance with their wishes and desires, as long as it's not impacting their health, safety, or welfare. Again, best practice is reporting to your court that each year on how the guardianship is going. They want to know whether any new services have occurred, if there are any outstanding services or needs that your ward has, and maybe your ward has regained capacity. And so that's another opportunity to let the court know, hey, I think my ward is able to make decisions on where they live. Like, they're able to do that now, whereas before maybe they couldn't. And then one of major best practice for guardians is that when you're consenting to medical treatment, the guardian should make decisions based on informed consent. And that is something that all of us have. It's our own individual's agreement to a particular course of action, based on you having the full disclosure of facts needed to make that decision. And as a guardian, we kind of stand in the place of our ward, because sometimes they can't understand, or they lack capacity and the inability to process that information on why a surgery may be necessary, medically necessary. So we stand in their place and we ask the doctors all that information. What are the risks? What are the benefits? What happens if we don't choose the surgery? All kinds of things like that. So we make sure that we are basically asking the same things we'd ask if it was ourselves undergoing a surgery or medical treatment.
Sophia, can you tell us about the Colorado Office of Public Guardianship? There's a pilot program that I think is very important for community to know about, because we have individuals that do not have a natural support system, someone that could become their guardian, and how this pilot program can assist them. Can you tell us more, please?
Yes. Yes, our pilot program right now is focused on Denver County residents. In 2023, a report will be submitted to the General Assembly, and at that time, they will determine whether the pilot program will continue, expand, or discontinue. Of course, our goal is for the office to eventually expand statewide, just because of the reason that you stated. Um, by statute, we serve adults that are 21 years of age and older, that are indigent and incapacitated, and oftentimes have no other person available or willing to serve as guardian. So our office is kind of that last resort for individuals. So if you have sometimes a person may have a family member or a really good friend that's willing to become guardian. That's great. That's wonderful. But our office tends to serve individuals that don't have someone like that. And that's kind of the great thing, I think, about this program, because you're right. There are a lot of people that, for whatever reasons, they don't have someone to serve them as guardian. So currently, for the pilot program, we have 4 public guardians, and they serve up to 20 court-appointed clients. We're still accepting referrals, so we're not quite up to 20 per public guardian. So if anyone needs some more information about making referrals, let me know. We do follow the best practices and standards of the National Guardianship Association. And we right now actually are also trying to get nationally certified through a program related to the National Guardianship Association, so that we can kind of be the role models for guardians in California. So if you need to have our office become guardian for an individual, you can make a referral to our office. By making a referral, that means that you're asking our office if that client meets our statutory requirements and if we have case load capacity to be able to serve that individual. At this time, because we're just a pilot, we can't file the court paperwork for a guardianship. So if you make a referral, you will need to have legal counsel to file the paperwork and handle the court process. To make an online referral with our office, you do have to register. It's a one-time registration, and it allows you to log into the account on our website anytime, and you can make more referrals through your account, update referrals, or see the status of the referrals that you've made. Once you've submitted a referral and we have all the information needed, we review it and make sure that, again, we're meeting our statutory requirements. So are they an adult 21 and over? Are they indigent? Are they incapacitated? And is there really no one else to serve them as guardian? And be aware that when you make a referral, you have to also submit medical documentation that's related to the person's incapacity and their financial information to make sure that they are indigent and don't really have any assets on hand. On the website, and I see on our last slide, there's our website that you can refer to, but there is something called a referral checklist, and I recommend that people review that and gather the information that's needed before you try and submit an online referral. I think it'll just go a little more quickly for you. And then if someone doesn't have access to a computer or internet, they can call the Office of Public Guardianship main office number, and we can assist them over the phone in making the referral.
Sophia, thank you very much for sharing all this information with us. It's a very important resource to know that the Office of Public Guardianship exists, that there is a support system in place for individuals that do not have a natural support system, and also that, you know, there is a process, there's best practices in that base case scenario is we're completing our advanced directives. But if we don't, that there is a legal process through the courts to seek guardianship conservatorship, that they are two different things. One primarily is medical housing, and that's guardianship, and the other one is conservatorship, which is money, property, your home, your car, in that there's that there's a responsibility when we say we're going to be a guardian or a conservator, that we are always doing everything in the best interest of the ward, in the best interest of the person that we are helping, that we are keeping records, that we are documenting, and that we're giving those reports to the court as the court assigns. So whether it's annually or every 6 months or whatever have you, whatever the court tells us, that's what we're going to do. The other thing that I think is very important to note, that I appreciate from the work that Sophia and her office does, is the person-centered care approach, where we're putting the person at the front, at the center. And even though some of their rights to make certain decisions are being removed, that they're still participating. I think there's a misconception about legal guardianship, that once you have a guardian, that you could no longer make decisions for yourself. And that is not the case. We just have to know exactly what it means and what are their responsibilities. So, Sophia, thank you very much for providing us with all this important information. I know that many older adults, caregivers, and professionals in the aging field will find this information very important. In front of you, you should see the Office of Public Guardianship, their address, phone number, email, and website. I will also make it available in the video's description and the resources, so you could find the checklist, you could find a copy of this PowerPoint, and you could have direct access to the checklist that Sophia mentioned. So if this is something that you need to do for someone and complete a referral, that you're able to do that. So before we say goodbye, Sophia, anything else that you would like to add or that I missed?
No, I think you summed it up very well. And I would just like to say, our office, we definitely strive and want to be that role model for guardians here in Colorado. And so we take this very seriously, and we've just enjoyed this job so far, taking care of our clients and working with them. And we have some really wonderful stories of how we've impacted some of our clients really dramatically. And I encourage you to just reach out to us if there's any questions, or review our website if you'd like more information. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day.